Ferrari has just put their simulator through a rigorous test with a whopping 20 different setups. Not just 2 or 5, but 20. They're now claiming that the SF-25 is finally ready to shine in Japan. But let's be honest, when a top F1 team is scrambling to make that many adjustments, it's more of a sign of trouble than a triumph. They're calling it a fix, but if the car was genuinely competitive from the start, why did both Hamilton and Leclerc get disqualified in China? And why does the floor lose grip as soon as they load it up with fuel? Plus, what's up with the car struggling the moment it strays from the ideal setup? In this video, we're going to dig into what Ferrari isn't saying outright, how the suspension has been at odds with itself from day one, how Hamilton's sprint win exposed the deeper issues, and why Suzuka could either be Ferrari's moment of redemption or a public disaster. This isn't just hype, it's a pivotal moment. So, if you're tired of press releases and overly rosy analyses, smash that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because this is F1 Extreme. No spin, no fluff, just the real deal. Let's not fool ourselves. Ferrari's season didn't just start off slow, it kicked off poorly. In Australia, they only realised the car was too low to the ground after Friday's practice. This isn't just a stroke of bad luck. It shows a serious lack of competence and highlights the chaos at Maranello. While the SF-25 might have great potential, it's all for nothing if the team doesn't fully understand their own car. Red Bull and Mercedes would never make such a mistake, but for Ferrari, this has become the norm. The real problem isn't about speed. It's about their processes. Let's take a moment to think about the 20 different simulator setups they tried out. That's quite a lot, almost a bit frantic. It really shows how uncertain the team felt after the race in China. But on the flip side, it also highlights their dedication. They didn't just throw in the towel and point fingers at the drivers or the track. Instead, they rolled up their sleeves and dove into the data, testing every possible configuration until they found something that felt right. Whether that newfound confidence will translate into better performance on the track is still up in the air, but they deserve some credit for their hard work. This time around, Ferrari is focusing on addressing the core issue instead of just slapping on a press release to cover it up. Here's a reality that many might shy away from admitting. The SF-25 wasn't just sensitive, it was at odds with itself. The reintroduced pull rod front suspension, which was meant to improve turn-in and aerodynamic balance, ended up clashing with how the rear suspension behaved. As a result, instead of having a well-balanced chassis, Ferrari ended up with a front and rear that just didn't get along. That's why the car felt so unpredictable and why the drivers had a tough time staying consistent. It wasn't about their driving style, it was a mechanical mismatch. Now, as they gear up for Suzuka, they're finally making the necessary tweaks to harmonise the front and rear suspension. It might be a bit late in the game, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. While Leclerc was grabbing the headlines, it was Hamilton who laid bare the reality of the situation. He demonstrated his prowess in the Chinese sprint with a car that really only shines within a specific range. That win was more than just a race, it sent a strong message. This car can take the top spot if you know how to work with it. But there's a big catch. That victory came under ideal circumstances. Low fuel, a smooth track, and a light setup. Once you stray from that sweet spot, the car starts to falter. So, the sprint didn't really showcase Ferrari's speed. It revealed their potential, with Hamilton tapping into that potential from the SF-25 through sheer grit. Let's be honest. Ferrari's problem isn't exactly a mystery. It all boils down to ride height. The SF-25 only hits its stride when it's in the perfect position, just a few centimetres off, and the floor can't generate the necessary downforce. If it's too low, the plank scrapes the ground, leading to disqualification, as Hamilton found out in China. If it's too high, the grip disappears and the car starts to slide. There's no margin for error. It's like walking a tightrope at 300 km per hour. This isn't just a setup issue, it's a fundamental design flaw. Unless Ferrari can widen that operational range, they're not just up against their competitors, they're fighting against the laws of physics. Sure, Ferrari looks strong in China, and yes, Hamilton took the sprint win, But let's not fool ourselves, that's not the whole story. McLaren messed up their sprint qualifying, with Norris and Piastri starting too far back, and Piastri spent a good chunk of the sprint stuck behind slower cars. By the time he got free, Hamilton was already way ahead. So, was Ferrari fast? Absolutely, but the gap seemed bigger than it really was. The sprint was more about McLaren's mistakes than Ferrari's dominance. This is important because if Ferrari thinks they're ahead based on that one result, they're setting themselves up for another disappointment. What's coming up is far more important than what's happened in the past. Ferrari knows that the SF-25 is still evolving, which is why they're rolling out upgrades in Bahrain, particularly targeting the Coke bottle area and rear floor, with a bigger update planned for Miami. This shows their commitment, but it also confirms the nagging feeling that the base car needed some work. The silver lining is that they're actively addressing it. However, the downside is that their rivals are also stepping up their game. If Ferrari's improvements only help them catch up instead of taking the lead, that might not be enough. At Suzuka, there's no hiding anything. The high-speed corners, elevation changes and bumpy surfaces will expose any flaws in the car. If the SF-25 shines here, it'll prove its worth. But if it still struggles with balance, ride height or stability, those issues will just be better hidden. Suzuka doesn't care about simulator data or optimistic PR. It lays bare any weaknesses. So when Ferrari says this is the race where they'll finally show their speed, they really need to deliver. After 20 simulator setups and all the talk of confidence, there's no room left for excuses. This breakthrough looks promising, the effort is real, and the intentions are serious. But the big question is it too late? Red Bull is relentless, Mercedes is rebuilding, and McLaren is gaining momentum. Ferrari can't just show up on the track. They need to make significant progress fast. The gap isn't just about lap times. It's about mindset, consistency, and leadership. For the first time in a long while, Ferrari seems to be in the running for a win. However, if they can't back that up on the track this weekend, it won't be a breakthrough, it'll just be noise. Here we are, with Ferrari announcing they've made a major breakthrough. But let's be honest, we've heard similar claims before. The real question isn't just about how fast the car can theoretically go. It's whether they can actually deliver when it matters most. No more depending on simulators, no more excuses about the conditions, and no more hoping others will slip up. In Formula One, it's all about execution, not just potential. While Red Bull keeps charging ahead, McLaren is sharpening their skills and Mercedes is picking up speed. Ferrari seems to be still trying to find their footing. Is the SF-25 the car that shone in the sprint? Or is it the one that stumbled under pressure just 2 days later? This weekend at Suzuka is more than just another race. It's a vital test for Ferrari. If they trip up again, it won't just be about the car. It'll raise serious questions about the team's culture, vision, and their ability to compete at the top level. Let's be real, the fans deserve more, and Ferrari owes them more than just empty promises. So, as the lights go out in Suzuka, we're not just watching Ferrari fight for points, we're watching them fight for credibility. No more simulations, no more maybes. Either the SF-25 delivers, or the narrative writes itself. Because in F1, excuses don't win championships, execution does. If you're ready to cut through the noise and keep it real every race weekend, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is F1 Extreme, where the hype ends and the truth begins.